Hey, Judge. I have on my Zoom line for work, which is what I have to log in through. I have a 10 o'clock meeting that begins. So
Yes, sir. I,
um,
I hope that our meeting,
I'm going to handle that. I may.
yes, sir. Wait just a second. Had to turn that off. Good morning, everyone. Waiting on two of our colleagues to get logged on. So sit tight for just a second. We've got a couple little technical difficulties. Okay, if I can start our meeting, I'm going to call our meeting to order. Mr. Ellison will be joining us momentarily. I've not had any contact from Mr. Burke. We have, but we're going to move on, and sure it's some technical difficulty. Our meeting via Zoom. The protocol per Commonwealth of Kentucky Office Secretary in recognition of the fact there is confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Kentucky, and with more expected, all Kentucky boards and commissions are encouraged to take proper health precautions to mitigate the spread, including the use of video software for meetings. So that's why we are meeting via Zoom, and I appreciate your all's help and flexibility in regards to doing so. At this time, I'm going to ask to call the roll, and she is in the courtroom with me this morning, so she will, if you will respond with a thumbs up and verbally, that would be great when she calls the roll, so we can reflect that for the record.
Mr. Hostetler,
Present.
Mr. Lyons,
Here.
Mr. Wallace,
Here.
Mr. Corman,
Present.
Mr. Ellison, Mr. Burke, Mr. Livingston,
Here.
Mr. Marshall, Judge Covington.
Present. And I appreciate your all's flexibility and then join us via Zoom. And this is being live streamed on the Scott County Fiscal Court YouTube channel. It will also be archived there as well for review in the future, if anyone wants to review the tape as well. So with that said, I would ask that you all join me. We do this, and I think it's important to continue to do it, is the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you all will join me, I'm going to recite the pledge. If you join me, that'd be great. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all very much for that. I think it's important to do those traditions and symbolic act there. Next, I'm going to call to order the LGEA and CRA public hearing. And this is the public hearing to be held here at the courthouse. And we have advertised for public comment regarding the possible use of county road aid and local government economic assistance funds. And we published that in the local paper. And at this time, I'm going to call on J.R. Brandenburg to share his recommendations for that usage with the court. J.R.?
Good morning, everyone. I would like to recommend Barkley Road, 3.97 miles, Elkhorn Bend Drive, 0.41 miles, North Dividing Ridge, 2.43 miles, South Dividing Ridge, 2.11 miles, Sharp Road, 2.34 miles, and a section of Delaplane off 62 is 0.19 miles. And these haven't been paved 15, 18 years, a range of them. And that's the most needed in my opinion. So thank you very much.
JR, appreciate it. Let me repeat that. It's Barkley Road, Elkhorn Bend Drive, North Dividing Ridge Road, South Dividing Ridge Road, Sharp Road, and a section of Delaplane.
Yes, sir.
Questions or comments does anyone have regarding those recommendations?
Motion to approve the recommendation.
Second on the
Mr.
motion.
Lyons. And I have a second from Mr. Hostetler. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, but I also got a question, if you don't mind.
Oh, absolutely.
JR, you said a section of Delaplane.
Yes, sir.
Is that the part, what part is that?
By the old Oxford School that runs between US 62 East and Oxford Village Drive.
Oh, that's
0.19 miles.
Yes, 0.19 miles.
okay. Yeah, so that little bitty short section. Okay.
Yes, sir.
'cause there's not much of the old Delaplane left, really.
That's right. There's 3 or 4
No, but-
sections of it.
I didn't know if that, there's a couple of sections. It's all broken up now, but out runs parallel with the bypass there in front of Toyota. But you're not talking about those. You're talking about over there by the old school.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we've had a motion and a second. Is there any other questions or comments? At this time, I'd like to take, well, Stacy's helping me on okay, we need for the record to reflect that we did not receive any public comment from the ad that was ran on the 2nd of April, 2020. So we need to make sure that the record reflects that. So we've done that. So now at this time, we've got a motion. We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hand and
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Motion passes unanimously. At this time, I'd like to close the hearing and move to our next agenda item. JR, thank you for your work and efforts to provide that information for us and recommendation.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Next, number 5 on our agenda is the minutes from our previous meeting. What questions or comments does anyone have in regards to those minutes as presented?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve from Mr. Corman, and I see a second from Mr. Wallace. Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next, we'll look at number 6 on our agenda, transfers as presented in your packet. Any questions or comments in regards to transfers?
Motion approved.
Motion from Mr. Rick Hostetler to approve. Is there a second? Second from Mr. Livingston. Any other questions? All those in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Number 7, bills as presented in your packet. There are no hand checks. Bills as presented. Any questions or comments?
Motion for approval.
Motion from Mr. Wallace. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Lyons. Any other questions? All those in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you all very much. Number 8, I'd like the record to reflect Magistrate Rick Hostetler completed his required training units. Congratulations, Rick. Number 9. Number 9 is on our agenda is jail new hires. Stacy's going to hand me those 2 recommendations for our agenda and for your consideration. Jailer Broyles would like to recommend the following individuals for full-time employment consideration. Mr. Ryan Brock and Mr. Shane Wilson. Jailer Broyles would also like to recommend for part-time employment, Mr. Dustin Sparks, Mr. Jacob Oakes, Mr. Michael Baldwin, and Mr. Tyler Harris.
Judge, do you know what that does to his, the 2 full-times? What that does to his staffing levels? I didn't think to call him about that.
I can get that answered. I do not have that.
Well, it's
I
not
have
that
the answer.
important.
This is Jeff. It gets into full staffing.
Cool. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Jeff, thank you for that answer.
You're welcome.
Anyone else have any other questions related to that recommendation and request?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve by Mr. Hostetler. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Livingston. All those, any other question or comments? All those in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. At this time, number 10 on our agenda is library appointments. The library is required to submit 4 names. And you have this information from the library and their board. We have 4 names Kenneth Wright, Rebecca Nelson, Richard Archie, and Christine Robinson. The board requests 2 trustees to be appointed for second terms, names of Ken Wright and Rebecca Nelson. That's their request for those 2 of the 4. What questions or comments does anyone have in regards to that matter?
Should we do those individually or otherwise a motion to approve Kenneth Wright and Rebecca Nelson? Unless we should do that individually.
Unless there's someone that wants it separated, we can do it.
We can do it collectively unless someone wants to separate them. So there is a motion on the floor and an answer to that question. Is there a second?
I'll second Rick's motion.
Okay, Kelly Corman seconds Mr. Hostetler's motion to approve as recommended the names of Becky Nelson and Ken Wright. Any other questions? All those in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Very well, motion passes unanimously. Thank you all. Next, we are now on number 11 on our agenda. And I'm going to ask for a pause for just a second to try to assist Mr. Burke for a second. Pause, everybody. Mute and just hang. Okay. We have, we're working on adding Mr. Burke. He's had some technical difficulties and appreciate your all's flexibility. I know it's a challenge sometimes to navigate the situation, but I wanted to make sure we could get him in, and he'll be joining us here momentarily. So that leads us back to our agenda item, ordinance 20-03, budget first reading. And I'd like to just share the screen of the ordinance. And this is, I'm going to ask Mr. Rand Marshall to read the ordinance, and he has joined me in the courtroom at a social distance. So at this time, Rand will read the ordinance.
Ordinance 20-03, an ordinance relating to the annual budget and appropriations, be it ordained by the fiscal court of Scott County, Kentucky. Following budget for the fiscal year 2020 through 2021.
I can't hear you. I can't hear.
Okay. I'll ask him to read a little louder. But we're reading what I'm sharing on the screen. Can everybody see on the screen? If you can give me a thumbs up on, you can see the ordinance that Rand's reading. And then Rand's going to try to speak a little louder. Thank you.
The following budget for the fiscal year 2020 through 2021 and the amounts stated are appropriated for the purposes indicated. General fund, general government, $7,944,178. Protection to persons and property, $9,853,169. General health and sanitation, $987,950. Social services, $377,020. Recreation and culture,
$1,174,325. Airport operations, $80,000. Capital projects, $201,000. Administration, $9,670,975. Total general fund, $30,288,617. Road fund, roads, $2,428,265. Capital projects, $120,000. Administration, $972,500. Total road fund, $3,520,765. Jail fund, protections to persons and property, $2,542,602. Social services, $276,500. Administration, $1,179,000. Total jail fund, $3,998,102. LGEA fund, roads, $180,000. McCracken fund, social services, $2,000. Hospital trust fund, social services, $2,000. Total budget appropriations. Total general fund, $30,288,617. Total road fund, $3,520,765. Total jail fund, $3,998,102. Total LGEA fund, $180,000. Total McCracken fund, $2,000. Total hospital trust fund, $2,000. Grand total all funds, $37,991,484.
So with that said, we've shared that screen, and this is follow up from our budget workshop that we had on earlier in the week. And what questions does anyone have or comments? And then I'd like the record to reflect that Mr. Ellison joined us at the start of the number 11 on our agenda. What questions or comments does anyone have in regards to the first reading of that ordinance related to fiscal year 21 budget? Chad, you need to unmute.
One's ever said that.
I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, now we can hear you.
In the budget draft that Michelle had sent out on Tuesday afternoon, there was $357,020 in the social services budget item, but then the one you just sent, there's a $20,000 increase. Do you know what that $20,000 increase is reflective of?
Yes, that is the 20,000 in the discussion that we had related to Kentucky Resource Council.
Oh, okay. So that's okay. Gotcha.
Yes. And the Kentucky Resource Council is led by Tom Fitzgerald, and Tom Fitzgerald has been representing the county for over a year now. They're a nonprofit, and they are funded by donations by government entities and private sector.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I'm just
Right.
I want to know
No,
what
that was the difference. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Livingston.
I don't know if everybody can hear me. I would like for us, before we check to any nonprofits, to verify their status with the Secretary of State and that all their paperwork is updated and the federal level if necessary. That we're not writing checks to groups that are not qualified as nonprofits.
So Mr. Livingston's requesting, if you could not hear, Livingston had a tech era and he's joined us. Mr. Livingston's requesting that before we allocate any of those funds and write any checks on their request, that we confirm that their 501c3 status is active, and is that the basis? That, I think that's the basis of the request. And
And I have another request too. And I know in some of these organizations, we get budgets, but I think that's something else we probably ought to look at to see how much administrative costs they have and how much they're giving and who they're giving to. And I know in some of us, we get their budgets, but I'm not sure if all of them.
we will let the record reflect that request as well. I'd also like the record to reflect that we're joined by Magistrate Mr. Bill Burke at this time. Mr. Burke, do you have any questions regards? We have read the ordinance related to budget FY21 and are having discussion at this time.
I said, I have no questions.
Yes, sir. Thank you. At this time, would anyone entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the budget as presented.
I'll second.
We have a motion on the floor from Mr. Ellison and a second from Mr. Bill Burke. Any other questions or discussion related to that? All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you all for your time and efforts on that. And a lot of work went into it, and I think it's a response. Deliver taxpayers' dollars. So with that said, I think I can move next to the standing order. I got to look at my agenda. We need to approve the annual standing order, and Mr. Rand Marshall will read that, and then we'll go from there.
Annual standing order to pre-approve certain recurring expenses pursuant to KRS 68.275 sub 3. Fiscal court may adopt an order to pre-approve the payment of monthly payroll and utility expenses. No other expenses shall be pre-approved pursuant to this subsection without the written consent of the state local finance officer. Fiscal court of Scott County, in accordance with state law, hereby orders recurring expenses for utilities, including telephones, vehicle fuel, and salaries be paid when due. It's hereby acknowledged the above standing order shall expire after July 1 of each fiscal year. No more payments designated in the standing order shall be pre-approved unless a new order is adopted by the fiscal court of Scott County according to the provisions KRS 68275 sub 3.
Stacey Hamilton would like to make a comment.
Last year, we tried to add vehicle fuel because our bills were consistently late and that was denied. So we need to mark out. I'll take that off.
We're going to strike vehicle fuel because we tried to add it last year and it was not accepted and most likely will not be accepted this year. So we'll strike that. What questions or comments does anyone have related to that annual standing order request?
Motion to approve.
Motion from Mr. Lyons. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Rick Hostetler. Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you all. With that said, it leads us to number 13, comment. And there is one piece of public comment request, and that comes from Nathaniel Price, who is with local organization called Transform Scott County. Transform Scott County has been working over the past 2 weeks in consultation with Lean Business Solutions, and they've laid out a framework for what they're going to call the Community Relief Fund. They've asked and met with the mayor and I. This fund is intended for Scott County families directly affected by COVID-19. From their experience working daily in emergency relief in Scott County, They're anticipating a new wave of requests. They believe they're going to be requests coming into an already exhausted support system from families who've been out of work and perhaps not returning to work. Bills being sent out, but family assets have not been recovered. While there have been relief funds from federal government, transforming Scott County's experience tells us that those funds will not be enough to truly bring families back into balance, and many families will need assistance in funding sources. There's no way really to tell, what they're facing right now. And they've had conversations with church leaders, nonprofit leaders, community leaders, and those conversations indicate the same assumption that the need's going to continue to grow. They're asking the Scott Fiscal Court and the City Council to jointly consider helping launch this fund. They're going to set a goal of raising $25,000, and they're asking the court and the City Council to consider a 10% investment. And I assume that they're asking us for $2,500 as seed money, as they said it in their email, to help get this COVID community fund launched. And they say in the letter they appreciate our consideration. And then I appreciate what they've done about what in the attached PDF that I shared with you this morning. They shared exactly what the fund is for: housing assistance, rent or mortgage, no hotels, food for people in need. All food requests will be forwarded to the Amen House. This fund will supplement the Amen House monetarily to purchase additional food. Well, that was added. It was part of the public comment, and it's related to the budget.
Okay, I got you.
That's why. They're also going to give some utility assistance, frontline responders, appreciation, and restaurant support. They're going to do a one-time, or I believe a one-time recognition for frontline responders, and then they're going to try to get local restaurants to participate in that as well. And then I'm not going to go down through here, but the big thing, the overall fund will be administered 30% for housing, 30% for utilities, 30% for food, and then 10% for the frontline responders appreciation. I like how they line that out, and it's all black and white on how those funds are going to be expended. So I know anytime, tax dollars are requested, that all of you all take that very seriously, but I think this would be a well-used effort that's being put together, and be a good way for us to help our community at the same time. I'm going to ask for any comment or questions related to that public comment and request that was made.
I do have comment.
Mr. Livingston has comment.
We already give to the Amen House. We already give to the Amen House. I don't know that we need to. We already give to Transform Scott County. They're talking about giving to. They're talking about doing things with this fund that other groups are already doing, and we're going to be in a situation where there's another group that's been created. Are they going to come and ask for money as well? My challenge, and we've talked about this in the budget meeting, is my challenge is for the churches to step up. I'm going to go back and look and see how many churches we have in the community. And I would gather to say that it's probably 15 to 20 churches. And if those 15 to 20 churches all stepped up with a small amount of money, they could fund this. But funding something that funds something that we already fund, if you follow that, I think is duplicate giving. in the whole scenario and the whole process, because there are other groups that are all already doing this. And we didn't raise in the budget. I don't believe we increased the Amen House budget. And as opposed to giving this money and then this money going to the Amen House through this channel, why would we not just increase the Amen House budget? And I don't agree that we do this at this time because of our revenue cuts. You open the door to another group, and then another group comes, and our group of nonprofits continue to grow that are asking us for money.
Any other comments regarding, I will make one comment from just conversations with the Amen House. Their need, because of the COVID-19 event, is over 30% higher than they normally, their requests for food are higher. And the situation has impacted a lot of people, and they're trying to fulfill those requests. They have received a $10,000 grant from the Bluegrass Community Foundation and are working on other lines as well. I'm sharing the request. I would support the request based on, yes, we allocate funds to the Amen House and Transform Scott County based on normal operating years and circumstances. We are in a situation that's kind of unprecedented and impacting our community. And, my thought is I support the request. Mr. Burke.
I'd like to support the request, but I agree with David Livingston. I mean, we've just got, we're in a situation where our funds are going down and everybody else has got their hand out. To fund an organization just doesn't make sense. Now, if Amen House is one of the nonprofits that we fund and Amen House needs more money, then let's give money to Amen House. I just don't see the need to give another nonprofit. It just doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, $2,500 is not a lot of money. It's not going to break the bank. And if anybody else wants to go along with it, yeah, I'll probably vote for it. But I agree with David. We just going to have too many folks with their hands out.
And just to clarify, that Transform Scott County has they've been in discussion with the Amen House about earmarking that 30% from this food. And I appreciate the job that they did outlining where the funds will go from the community fundraiser and the community drive. 30% for food, 30% for utilities relief, 30% for for housing relief.
Where's the other 10% go?
10% is what I discussed in the letter. Was they're going to do a first responders. Essentially, you're going to work with local restaurants to do a first responders are going to buy lunch or dinner for first responders out of that last 10%, and they're going to do it through local restaurants to support local restaurants. So, I bring this to you. I don't want to drag it out and beat it to death. Who else has some comments?
Judge, I'd like to comment. As much as I admire what they're doing and would love to be able to help them, we just went through this budget with a scalpel to trim a few $1 million out of it. We're still going to go into reserves several $1 million. I don't have those. I can't get everything I need on the screen. But we did that this year to get by. If this economy stays shut down much longer, he's going to take a chainsaw next year to this budget. So as much as I want to help them, I can't support it right now.
Any other questions, comments? I go on the record still saying that I would support it just because of the unprecedented times that we're in. I also understand that we are in a very tight budget and we are in a very tight circumstance, and we've gone through the project of cutting, I will support the measure out of my own pocket. And I would challenge the rest of you to do the same if you have that luxury in your budget. So I'll do that out of my own pocket and make a donation towards that. And then I'll be encouraging the rest of the community to do that as well. With that said, that there was no other public comment. And is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Lyons. Is there
Second.
a second from Mr. Corman? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn. Have a good day. Thank you. Be safe.